We get a VSG here today.
VSG, oh boy. You always get something new and stupid.
A very special guest, of course.
Very special.
He is a very good friend of ours for a long time now.
You are a friend of Pants.
I definitely am. Many of us are, but I am especially. And he is a former booker with Chaotic Wrestling, former referee with Chaotic Wrestling, and he is the head referee now of Ring of Honor. And his name, we know him as Fat Pants, but he is Todd Sinclair. Todd, it's lovely to have you here.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
Are you ready for lots of inside jokes that none of our listeners will get?
Yes, everybody's just going to hear us laugh and be confused and then shut this off.
But we'll listen to it.
Yeah, I'll listen to it.
All right, so Brian, what's your first memory? When I say Todd Sinclair, what comes to mind?
Well, I mean, obviously being a referee now, but my first probably interactions with him, Todd was training to wrestle.
At the Chaotic Training Center?
At the Chaotic Training Center, yeah. He was in there doing drills. It's just forward rolls you wouldn't take? Is that like...
No, I would take the forward rolls. I wouldn't take anything like a backdrop. I remember we did backdrop class. I'm like, no effing way am I doing a backdrop. And then I one time did a double underhook suplex. And my elbow hurt so bad, I'm like, I'm never taking another one of those. But I trained to do all the wrestling. And I didn't sign up to be a wrestler. I signed up to be a ref. But I figured... the reason I'm going to wrestling school is to learn as much as possible. So why not learn how to wrestle? And I remember I actually started going to the school before I had signed up to watch it. So we'd sit and watch the class. And that's where I met you, Brian, because you were doing the same thing. You were coming with, I think, Cleon.
Yeah.
And you maybe didn't have the money yet, or you're just wondering whether you should sign up or not. So we sat and watched a couple classes together before one of us started, and then the other one started shortly thereafter, or something like that. But that's where I met you, sitting in the little lounge.
I have no
part.
recollection of this.
Yeah, the little lounge part of the... Because I'm sitting there watching class, and then you'd leaned over and asked me a question. I'm like, shut up, I don't want to get yelled at by Hollow.
I'm very friendly.
Yes.
I remember I wrestled a show up in Vermont I wrestled Delirious, and El Generico was also on the show, and obviously they had known you from Ring of Honor, and I shared with them that you had trained to wrestle, and they were blown away by this.
Yep, I don't show those skills often. Well, maybe not in the last 13 years, but every so often I jump into a Rumble or a Battle Royal. That's about it. That's all I do.
Yeah. Well, I met you even a little before that, Todd. Before you came to the school and trained as a referee, you were in the front row. You would always be in the front row of shows with Mucko and Mike Jass, two longtime fans who in certain ways got into the business. And so you would be at Chaotic Wrestling shows just yelling things at the wrestlers in the ring, giving them stink noses. Can you describe what a stink nose is for the people at home?
It really is quite simple. If we didn't like what someone was doing, or we thought they were terrible at their job, we would hold our hand up in the air, bend at the elbow to bring our hand back down, take your pinky and index finger, and squeeze your nose. And we would thus give someone a stink nose. We were very famous for that. We were really pain-in-the-ass fans back then. And when I decided to train, I was pretty terrified people would kick the shit out of me because I was a jerk fan.
Right. So how did that transition take place? I know there was a show that you were at. I believe it was for Primal Conflict Wrestling, was it not?
It wasn't, no. It was, I believe it was called Big East Wrestling.
Okay.
Me and the aforementioned Mucko and Mike Jass, but I used to hang out with Mucko. You know, we would drive to the shows. And his name's Eric Arsenault. He's one of my best friends, and we'll mention him a lot here. But we used to go to all the indie shows in the area after ECW closed. Mm-hmm. Because once ECW closed and then WCW closed, there was kind of a void for going to pro wrestling unless WWF was in town. So we would go to all the indie shows, and we'd go to Chaotic, we would go to Primal Conflict that you mentioned. We went to the show Big East Wrestling, and one of our friends was on the show, George Carroll. He was wrestling on the show later on. I think it was in the main event or the second to last match.
Why wouldn't he be?
Yeah, why wouldn't it be? Top notch. But so we were at the show. This was in Clinton, Mass. in 2001. And we're watching the show, and then at intermission, George came out to say hi to us. This is before his match had happened. And I had always wanted to ref, but it was more of a joke than anything else because I was terrified to do it. And Mucko mentioned to George, why don't you have Pants ref your match? And to me, that just was silly, and why would I ever do such a thing? But George says, if you want to do it, I can make it happen. And then everybody who was there talked me into it. So in my beautiful jean shorts,
yes,
I went backstage, was given a ref shirt that was maybe 4 sizes too small, but let's say 3. And I squeezed myself into this ref shirt. And
there are pictures.
There are pictures. There are pictures.
I'm sure it'll get shared now on the WPAN social
media. We may
media.
see those at the WPAN on Twitter.
Yeah. So I ref my first match that night. I paid for a ticket to go to the show, to ref on the show, and had no training. So it was really the most ideal way to get into the wrestling business.
So you don't even have like the, hey, my first show, I got a handshake and a hot dog. You actually paid to work your first show.
Yes, I got paid. I paid maybe $10, $15 just to be on the show.
And am I right or wrong, but were there some obstructions in the ring while you were refereeing, or is this a different show I'm thinking of?
I think that might be a different show. The only thing I remember, the 2 things I remember from that show, number one, I've never been in the greatest shape in the world, but when I was in there, I don't know if anybody's seen that MTV Real Life special where they tell the kid to breathe. Well, I didn't breathe while I was in there because I was so nervous, so I wasn't breathing as I was reffing, so I had a massive purple face.
Purple face!
Yeah, so I was getting heckled for having a purple face the entire match.
By your friends.
By my friends. By the people that I drove to the show with. So that's the first thing I remember. And the second thing I remember was a wrestler called Vertebraker put lighting fluid on his leg, set it on fire, and did a leg drop from the second rope. And as he's doing it, number one, I didn't know it was coming. Number two, I was like, if he goes up in flames more than this, do I put it out or do I run away? Right. I didn't know. But those are the 2 things I remember. I don't remember the obstructions. That might be a different match.
Like a thumbtacks I was thinking about.
Oh, that was... I don't think that was that match. I think that thumbtacks were other stuff.
Back to the flames for a second now. You've been refereeing for 15 years. Have had extensive training all over the world. Has that answer ever been taught to you? What to do if a guy goes completely up in flames?
No, and I paid him good money for wrestling school, and nobody taught me about that. I'm really furious.
They?
Yeah, I'm furious.
Seems like first day type stuff.
Right. So your first match with Chaotic Wrestling, correct me if I'm wrong, but you main evented your first Chaotic Wrestling show.
I did main event. The referee-wise, I main evented my first Chaotic show.
And there was a reason for this, because in the match that night was one Brutus the Barber Beefcake. Am I correct?
Yes, he was.
And was it against Aaron Stevens?
Yeah, Aaron Stevens, the Chaotic Teen Idol who became Damian Sandow.
Now Aaron Rex in TNA. So the reason that you got this spot, why don't you let us know?
The school hadn't opened yet. The Chaotic School hadn't opened yet. So I was doing here and there more shows, usually with George. George would get me booked at Primal Conflict, which is one of the companies that you mentioned earlier. And so we would go to the Chaotic shows as fans still. There's that fine line when you get into this where you kind of not sure if you should be a fan anymore, but I was still going to a handful of shows here and there, even though I was reffing other ones.
Yeah.
So I was going to I was looking for a chance. So Mucko, again, he being brought up, he mentioned to Jamie from Chaotic, they had mentioned that they were bringing Brutus Beefcake for the next show. And then Mucko said, well, why don't you have Pants ref his match? And at the time, I had probably the same hairdo I have now, but I was going to actually cut all my hair off just because it was maybe summertime or close to it. But I just wanted to change my beautiful look into something else. And so the idea was they would put Aaron in that match who had long hair. He wouldn't get the haircut. I would. So I offered to have my head shaved by Brutus Beefcake to get the chance to ref the match and get my shot at Chaotic. So I did.
And you did.
I did. A nice story about that. That night, Brutus Beefcake was not available during the show because he was at the bar the whole night.
Okay.
So
I seem to recall this. Like the bar's on the other side of the ring.
yeah. I think this was
the locker room.
Lawrence.
Yeah.
So the bar is on the other side of the building. And
like the bar was Lawrence, the venue, the bar was like in with the fans, so he's just like drinking with the fans all night. Or like the closed, like the bar.
It
that was
might have been
separate
another
from
like they put like the partition, like they slide the partition. It might have been like that. I can't remember
Gotcha.
exactly.
Yeah, the bar's on the behind the wall, but there's a window into the main hall.
Right. So he happened to be at the bar all night. So I didn't see him until right before we went out, and he had been drinking the whole time. So I didn't know anything about taking a bump at all because I hadn't gone to wrestling school yet. So he said, "Okay, I'm going to throw you against the ropes, and I'll grab you in the sleeper, and that's it." And because I didn't do it before, I didn't even know how to hit the ropes.
Right.
So I told him, I think that's the smart thing to do. I'm going to tell him what I don't know how to do. He said, "Okay, well, I'll just punch you then. You bump, and then we'll do the haircut." I'm like, "All right, that's fine. That sounds
reasonable."
Yeah, that sounds good to me. I can try that." So the end happens, the finish happens of the match, and then he grabs Aaron Stevens, and then I get in the way of Brutus Beefcake, so he can't cut Aaron's hair. So that gives him the reason to want to cut mine. So now he's pissed at me. He grabs me with his left hand, and in his right hand, he looks around to the fans, but in his right hand, he has scissors in his hand that look like in Psycho when the lady had the knife in the shower.
So he's holding them in his fist.
Yes, in his fist, and he's looking around at the fans saying, "Do you want me to punch him?" with these scissors staring me at the face.
And Mucko's in the front row like, yes,
yeah, right.
Yes!
Go for it. And he had been drinking all day long, so I didn't know what was going to happen next. So right before he decides he's going to punch me, he puts the scissors, thankfully, in his mouth and then does the big wind-up with his right arm, punches me. So I take a bump off the punch, and then he picks me up for a body slam. And I don't know how to take a body slam at this point. So if you see I have a picture. I'll put a picture up on Twitter. If you see the body slam, I'm not holding on in any way. It's all him getting me up and tossing me down because I didn't know where to post. I didn't know where to put my hands. So my arms are waving in the air like, no! He slammed me and then shaved my head after that.
So this kind of got you in Chaotic, right? So you were on shows going forward after this.
Yeah, the school opened really close to after this. It was maybe one show and then the school opened, or it might have been right after this. But the school opened at that time, and that was just the perfect timing for me to sign up for the school and to be able to work the shows at the same time.
So how long were you refereeing before the idea of booking came up?
I started reffing in June of 2001. I think we started booking in August of 2002, so maybe a year, a little over a year. And we went to them. They needed a booker. Chaotic Wrestling needed a booker, and me and Mucko went to them with a kind of fantasy booking. Like, we actually wrote up a booking sheet of what we would do on the next show, went to Denny's with two of the owners, Jamie and Milo, and they gave us the job right there.
That's pretty that's different. So were the other people in the locker room, how'd they take to you guys? Like, Mucko was basically straight out of the crowd.
Yeah, well, Mucko, they didn't know Mucko was booking.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know if you remember, because you were there, Crockett, and Malonis was around at the school, but you weren't on shows yet, right?
No, not yet.
Yeah. So Mucko, we didn't want to say, like, at least I had been reffing for a year, but Mucko had nothing to do with the wrestling business as far as being trained or anything like that. He just had ideas and was creative. So we didn't tell people that Mucko was doing it. We only told people that I was doing it. But most people by that point, I think the perception was that I had a good rapport with people, that they actually accepted me. Maybe they didn't behind the scenes, behind my back, I don't know, but I think they were all right.
This is like a transition time for Chaotic too. Like, some of the old original Chaotic kind of stalwarts had like the Genos and the Alis and some of the other guys like that, they had all kind of filtered out, and now the top of the card was Louis and John and Vicalo and Arch, and then you kind of had
the ownership kind of thinned out also.
Yeah, and like you had guys coming up from the school now, so it was like I think it was probably the perfect storm for you guys to come in at that point because of the transition.
Yeah, nobody wanted to do it. Like that really was. I mean, they said our ideas were good for that show, but nobody wanted to book it. So we were given the chance because of that exact transition. Like you've talked about the contracts that Chaotic had. Like
right.
That was those guys that were under those contracts had gone by this point. So it was mostly just Chaotic school students. So we were all kind of training together at that point. But yeah, it was definitely a transition period for Chaotic.
So, I mean, you talked about the reaction of the locker room. One thing that sticks out in my mind about you as a booker was you really, if you believed in something, you really stuck to your guns. And that's something that, I mean, me and Brian, as doing some booking, it's really tough to do, especially with these wrestlers pushing you. I know someone that we know has been a couple times a guest on the show would just eventually say, okay, do whatever the hell you want, I don't care, once he's challenged enough. But what I recall is you really, really, digging your feet in the sand when it comes to certain things. And I don't know, do you think that kind of put you in a negative light with some of the guys backstage?
Yeah, definitely. Like as time went on, I'm stubborn as hell. That's I am. But I would, and this isn't that wrestlers don't think this way, but I would think about the booking of the shows 24 hours a day. Like that's all I did. So as I would come up with ideas and come up with what I wanted to happen, I was already married to it by the time I told people that it was going to happen. So when people wanted to change it, I'd have none of it. I think I'd say to you, Brian, a lot. I'd like, no, that stinks. Get the hell out of here. And I would tell you to do it the way I wanted to do it.
Yeah, Brian, what did you think when he would really stick strong?
I'm a stubborn guy too, but at that point, I mean, now I would fucking, I'd go right back at you. But at that point, I think it was, well, okay, like what else was I going to do? But I mean, we can edit this out if need be, if Fat Pants is uncomfortable talking about it. But I think the first time I saw you kind of have to back off something was me Chase with Mike Hollow kind of booking where you and Mike had a disagreement on how an angle with me and Chase should go.
Chase Del Monte,
yeah. And me and Chase were both just super green, like fresh to shows, and put in this position of our trainer and the booker. And I think eventually we did it Mike's way, if I remember this correctly.
And I might have this wrong too. To go back to the original question first, I was an asshole to a lot of people, and I think that hurt relationships. But in this instance, Mike is the Mike Hollow who trained both me and Brian at the Chaotic Training Center. And we just had a difference of opinion on how things would go. And again, I was stubborn as shit, so I wanted stuff to go my way. And I think the story is that as you guys were sitting in the front row, this is before the doors opened, talking over things, Mike called Pat Patterson.
Yeah, he did.
And Mike has a very good friendship with Pat. I've met Pat Patterson maybe 3 times in my life. He doesn't know me from anyone. But Mike would call Pat Patterson to get his opinion, and then would come to me and say, well, my opinion is the same as Pat Patterson's. What do you think? And like, where does that leave me? Am I going to disagree with
no-win situation?
Right. Am I going to disagree with Pat as with Pat Patterson, as stubborn and as I am? That's where I put my hands up, and I'm just like, you people, you guys can do what you want. Because I
finally found the key to unlock.
Yeah. Call Pat Patterson if you have a disagreement with me, and I'm going to win the argument. Call Pat.
But yeah, I think I look back at it now. That was a good thing you stuck to your guns, because I think about my time when I was booking, and I mean, with certain guys I would really hold to my guns, but the more veteran guys I'd be like, well, all right, if you think you know how to do this better, here's where I want to end up. If it fucks up, it's you.
Yeah, the way I did things, I wouldn't do things the same, because it's not fair to you guys. Who this is, I think I took a lot of creativity away from the wrestlers, and that's not right. completely disagree with that. But that's where I was in my life, where I thought of it 24 hours a day, and it was my way or the highway. It wasn't the right thing, and like I said, I change it now. But I think creativity is an important thing for wrestling.
And I think you were dealing with a younger locker room at that time anyway. Like you said, a lot of the guys that you were booking were training with you at the Chaotic Training Center. So,
yeah, it was like 90%. 90% of us were all just from the school.
So it's a little different from your situation, bro.
Yeah, and another little side story here that I think listeners will like. You were still booking at the time. Kofi's last match in Kofi Kingston, his last match with Chaotic Wrestling. He came out and cut the promo about nobody in the back can beat me. Blah 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 blah.
He was undefeated.
He was undefeated,
entire run,
and
which
I
wasn't that long.
Yeah, and I'd been a heel the entire time and Chaotic, and a pretty big heel too. I think at that point you were really ramping me up, and you told me the idea, and I had said to you, I think they're going to cheer me. No, there's no way they're going to cheer you, whatever. And they did, because here comes this big fat guy to kick this guy's ass. And I remember he was in the ring. You got to do something to turn him against you. You got to do something to turn him against you.
That Patriots stank.
Come on,
right?
Got to call it audible, right?
I did something like that. Yeah, I did something like that.
Yankees.
Something stupid.
Yeah, well, I mean that goes back to Kofi was a heel when he first started, which he shouldn't have been. He's said that he should have been a babyface, even for the 6 months or whatever we had him in Chaotic. I just wanted a Ludwig Borga. And so I made Kofi a Jamaican Ludwig Borga.
First time that sentence has ever been uttered.
You had to throw out the links to those vignettes, the original Kofi Kingston vignettes.
Yeah.
Yes, very reminiscent of Ludwig Borga in the early '90s WWF.
Yeah, so Kofi came up with a Jamaican character, and I wanted a Ludwig Borga, so he had to be a heel. And then
because Jamaica has always had terrible relations with the U.S.
Right, and then they think the U.S. is rotten.
So awesome.
So, getting more into booking, what is the favorite angle that you booked in Chaotic Wrestling? Do you have one? Can you think of one?
I don't know if maybe we did a double turn with John Walters and Louis Ortiz on one night where I can't remember the specifics, but we did an injury angle with John. So Louis did the Death Valley Driver onto a guardrail.
Yep.
And then John just went limp. So John was the heel, Louis was the babyface, and John went limp, and we did the injury angle. I think we got an ambulance.
We rented an
You certainly did.
Yeah, we rented an ambulance for that night, and we did between that show. So we ended the show that way, and then the following show, maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, we finished the switch by them shaking hands, John becoming a babyface, and then Louis saying the hell with it and did it again. Something like that. I can't remember. I think
was it the Coldplay song?
Yes.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we had the big recap video.
Confusion never stop.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, too, that it got out online that there was an injury. John Walters was injured on this show, and I think did you get Gabe Sapolsky from Ring of Honor actually maybe contacted Chaotic Wrestling or
contacted John.
Yeah.
John was he was in Ring of Honor. I don't know if he was the pure champ at the time, but he was. If he wasn't, they were ramping him up to get a good push, and we didn't tell anybody we were doing it. So yeah, Gabe contacted John, worried that he wasn't all right, and if that's what you hear about anybody, about any wrestler, you're going to be worried. But yeah, we didn't let on that it was all something that we just planned. I think the ambulance helps. If you can pay $300 for an ambulance to come to your wrestling show, go for it, because people will buy an ambulance.
Everyone bought it, yeah. Everyone bought it that night.
Yeah, it was great. Fantastic.
And what about the least favorite angle that you did?
Least favorite? I can't. Do you have one in mind? Or?
Well, the one I was thinking of that popped into my head.
You got a little laugh over there.
Crockett always has ulterior motives.
That's the worst one.
What about the kidnapping of Cherry Payne?
Oh yeah, that was Mucko's idea. So
I'm sorry.
I'm throwing him right under the bus, and he's not here.
Yeah, I was hoping Mucko was going to be here to take some of the.
It was both of our ideas as far as having her be kidnapped. Cherry Payne is.
I remember this.
This is early. This is before. I think this is before you were on shows. Cherry was with
Matthew Avagrius, right?
Not yet.
She with
Oh,
Arch?
she was with Arch.
She was kidnapped by Matthew.
Right,
Rodriguez.
she was with Arch Kincaid. So we did a kidnapping where Matthew Rodriguez kidnapped Cherry Payne, and then later, a few shows later, so she wasn't around for a few shows, and then we had someone deliver a box to Arch, and Cherry Payne has long red hair. We had someone deliver a box where when Arch opened the box, it was a braided hair, long red hair, a braid that so someone had cut all her hair off or something. That was the idea. That day, I went to Mucko's house before the show and said, we can't do this braid in the box because this is going to stink to high heavens. And we talked back and forth, and we eventually decided to actually do it. And when we did, it was the shits. It was crickets, total crickets.
It's tough to pull off a kidnapping angle, I think, especially in the independent level.
The independent level. And you got to realize too, this is before, I don't know if before YouTube existed, but at least before YouTube was widespread. So we couldn't put all our stuff out on the internet as far as people being able to watch videos and vignettes and promos, because that stuff was still in its infancy. So we weren't able to tell the story as much as we wanted to, but kidnapping is, in general, just totally is crap. So thanks for bringing that up. That was good.
You're very welcome. Very welcome. So deciding to stop booking for Chaotic Wrestling, how did that decision come to be?
It was, I did it for maybe 4.5 years, I think. And I was burnt out on it as far as booking, but the schedule didn't work anymore with Ring of Honor because I had started with Ring of Honor maybe 2 or 3 years prior to this, and I was lucky enough to have Chaotic run usually Fridays, and then Ring of Honor would mostly run Saturdays. So it was very rare that I would have a conflict of as far as not being able to make it to one or the other. And then the schedule for Ring of Honor started picking up, so I decided it just wasn't right for me to continue booking while I wasn't even there. So how am I supposed to tell guys what to do and come up with ideas for things that I'm not even going to see in person? So I decided to, I think it was around Cold Fury 6. I think Cold Fury 6 was the last show I booked.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
right.
But it was a combination of being burnt out and schedule.
Oh, what a great last show he booked. If I remember that show correctly. What a guy!
Cage
way
match,
to go out on top.
Cage match extraordinaire.
I wasn't talking about that piece of garbage. I was talking about launching the illustrious championship reign of the Kingpin, Brian Malonis.
Who did you beat? Tommaso
Ciampa.
Who was off to WWE for his first little
details. Let's not overshadow my moment. Todd's moment.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, before we get to the Ring of Honor stuff, let's just being a WWE Extra. We love the WWE Extra stories. We had an whole episode dedicated to it. Do you have any memories about being an extra WWE?
We did one where it was me, Handsome, Tony Omega, Vince Vicalo, I think Brian Black. A whole group of us went to Pennsylvania. I think it was Wilkes-Barre. And they had us be policemen. So I think it was Ric Flair and somebody are arguing in the hallway or something. And then the issue was Kane wasn't supposed to be allowed in the building or something. So they had this extra police force to stop Kane from coming to the building. So as Ric Flair and say it's Randy Orton, or I can't remember who it was, but say it was definitely Ric Flair, they're arguing in the hall. The policemen are supposed to run through them to get to where Kane's coming into the building. And I don't know if Handsome touched on this story. I can't remember. So if I'm saying it again, sorry. But as we ran through, Handsome shoved Ric Flair
I think you did mention this.
out of the way so we could get through. And then when we got to Kane, we were all supposed to make a circle. And there were actually 6 wrestlers, and then there were 6 actual policemen that they brought in. There were 12 of us that were supposed to circle Kane.
You guys pulled guns, right?
No, we didn't. We had rubber guns. We didn't pull guns.
Oh, you had your hands on your head.
We had our hands on our guns, and then we were supposed to be very, kind of scared, but also very forceful. So, and I get this from everyone after they watched it. I overacted a little bit, So as
I know nothing about that.
yeah, Crockett's the one who told me, a-hole. So as we got to Kane, we went around, and I was like, in the positioning of my legs and my arm out and holding the gun, I was like, Kane, no, and I was overacting like you wouldn't believe. Everybody else is just putting their arm out, like, all right, you can't go through. But I was overacting like crazy.
Going for your Emmy.
I was, so you gotta make an impact when you get a chance.
I need to go back to your first spot as an extra that just popped into my head, where you were dressed as a woman. As a very ugly woman, as it was reported on PW Insider or OneWrestling.com.
OneWrestling.com, right. So, yeah. Todd Sinclair as a very ugly woman.
Yes. Yeah. It was at the Friendly Tap, which was Tim White's bar in Providence, Rhode Island, if I'm not mistaken.
Somewhere in Rhode Island.
Yeah, and it was booked through Chaotic, and they wanted to have some sort of cross-dressing party of some sort with the APA, correct?
It was a different time.
Yes, it was. This would not be able to be on TV anymore. It was the APA. So the APA had gone to the Friendly Tap a few times before and beat the tar out of some local guys that were playing pool. So the idea was the APA in their office, which was just the door.
Right.
They would get an invitation to the Friendly Tap. So like, all right, we're going to go to the Friendly Tap. And when they got there, there was a sign on the door that said ladies' night.
Yeah.
Oh no, men's night. No, sorry, it said men's night. It's like, we're men, so let's go in. So as they get to the bar, they're like, oh, thanks for the invitation. And then as they turn around, they see 20 guys in various forms of dress. I was in an actual dress and a blonde wig, dancing with each other and enjoying men's night.
Right.
What's he gonna do?
Yeah, what's wrong with that? So we did that, and then as they're shocked and dismayed that there's a bunch of men dancing with each other, then Chuck and Billy attacked them to do whatever they had to do to continue their feud or something like that. But yeah, we were the men's night patrons of the Friendly Tap.
Yes, and your most famous spot, which as we talked about before we recorded, that was very rarely seen by anybody, was you portrayed Santa Claus in a commercial for one of the least. How do I say this?
Least loved, maybe?
Pay-per-views of all time?
Yeah.
Is it December to Dismember?
Yeah, the ECW pay-per-view.
Yes. So they needed a Santa Claus, and they were at TV. You were at TV, Todd, and you were also at TV, Brian, right?
Yeah, so we were standing by the ring, and then all of a sudden, like, somebody puts their hand on my shoulder, and it was John Laurinaitis, and he just says, come with me. And I was shitting myself because like Hollow and Jamie were there and they didn't know what was going on, so they're looking at me and I make eye contact with them, like I like shaking my head, like I thought I did something wrong. I thought I was getting kicked out of TV or something. I thought it was like, oh shit, he's gonna like bring me to get my stuff, and I must have done something. And we get to the back and he's like, we're gonna do a commercial shoot with a hack. Like, being Sandman.
Right.
We need somebody to play Santa Claus. So he brings me to the production truck, and he goes in for like, it felt like forever. Like it was maybe 5 minutes in reality, but it felt like 2 hours. And he comes back out, and he tells me like I'm too tall because I'm taller than the Sandman. So it's not gonna, me as Santa Claus is not gonna work. So.
Yep. And then so after that, I don't remember the story of how I was told, but I took your spot. I stole the Sandman spot.
You were no good, son of a bitch.
That's right. The Sandman spot with Santa Claus. They needed a Santa Claus. My physique looks like Santa Claus, so they grabbed me, and we actually didn't do it at TV. We did it during the week.
At Titan Tower?
Yeah. They had me come down to Titan Tower. So I'm from Massachusetts, so maybe it's like a 3.5-hour ride on a Wednesday, let's just say. Get to Titan Tower. Nova was the person, the person talking to talent then. So I met Nova at Titan Towers, went in, and then they took me over to the TV studio, and then from there we went to one of the TV studio people's house because they had a nice fireplace.
Oh,
yeah. So they had a nice rocking chair that I got to sit in. Sandman was there. Sandman was real cool, and he proceeded over the course of maybe 15 takes to hit me directly in the head with his Singapore cane over and over again. It was at least 10 shots that I took, maybe 15 of them, but directly to the head. The only thing protecting me at the beginning from the head shots was my Santa wig and my hat. Okay. But after I took about 4 of them, Sandman felt really bad, so he took his snot rag out of the back pocket, and he lifted up the wig, and he put his snot rag right on the top of my head to protect my head from these Singapore cane shots.
Was the snot rag made out of, like, steel?
I don't know what it was. But he had that rag, like when he was in WWF, he had that rag sticking out of his pants every match. So I got to actually have it right on the top of my head as I took Singapore cane shots.
Did you get to keep it?
I didn't. No, I had to give it back. No, I mean, that's one of a kind. I can't take that from him. And then from there, a side story on this. So as far as the commercial goes, that commercial, as far as I know, never really aired on television. I never saw it. And I was watching, of course, I'm going to be on TV. So I watched every show possible to be able to see it. And I never saw it air on television, but it did air. The only time I ever saw it was on the Legends of Wrestling Roundtable on the WWE 24/7 at the time. And then they took one clip from it. So the full commercial was on that. And then they took one clip of it, of my eyes in shock in the Santa outfit, for a Shop Zone commercial with Tori Wilson or something. So that was my maybe quarter of a second of fame as Santa Claus from there. But a side note on that is, after we went from the house, we went back to Titan Towers, and I got to go into the merchandise room at Titan Towers, which I've heard from people that have worked there for a long time have never been able to go into that room. I got to go in that room and see all kinds of merchandise, and Nova said, take whatever you want. So I took a whole bunch of DVDs.
Translation, please don't sue us.
Right, yeah, no, right. So I took a bunch of DVDs, and I got paid. They actually paid me really well to do the commercial. But
Did you get the Pillman DVD like before it came out?
Yeah. I was so proud of myself.
I had that in my head too. Yeah,
I was so proud of myself. The Pillman DVD's out in a month, and I have it before everybody. I was so thrilled. But yeah, so I got to see that merchandise room at Titan Towers, and just being in Titan Towers, as a longtime wrestling fan, was really tremendous, just to be walking around Titan Towers. That was pretty cool.
And I remember seeing the picture of that egg on your head from all those cane shots. Do you still have that picture somewhere?
I might. I'm not sure, but it was a huge mound on the top of my head. Yeah, it was pretty rough. I'll look for it. I don't know if I have it.
Yeah,
looks like I dodged a bullet there.
Yes.
It hurts. It hurts so much. And after every take, they're like, "You okay?" Yes, I'm fine.
What are you gonna say?
Right. No, quit it.
So probably the most success you had at WWE is you reffed a dark match. Am I correct?
Well, if you call that success,
it's not really.
It's not, yeah. It's not really a success at all.
Success is a relative term.
Right. I'm happy I got to do it. I was very proud, but it's not successful. But yeah. I did one dark match, just one.
And this was. I'm remembering that Ricky Steamboat really pushed for you because you were doing the Ring of Honor stuff, and he was doing Ring of Honor stuff at one point.
Yeah, Steamboat had come in to do an angle with Punk, and he was with Ring of Honor for it wasn't very long, maybe 4 months or so, but he was really, really like one of the best people we ever had to come, a star come in to Ring of Honor, because he would help everybody and was just really cool. Then he got signed to be an agent, and when I went to TV, we were going to be Druids. I think we were Druids that night. I don't know if you guys were the Druids too, but there was a bunch of us that were Druids. I think Kofi was one and Handsome was one. But Steamboat remembered me from Ring of Honor, and he went to Sergeant Slaughter and said, put this guy in the dark match, give him a shot. So it was really cool to, Ricky Steamboat going to bat for me. That was really cool.
But you did the match. Who was in the match?
Ken Phoenix, who was Kenny from the Spirit Squad.
Right.
And Sylvain Grenier.
And Ken Phoenix was before he was signed, or? He
was signed. I'm pretty sure this was right before the Spirit Squad. He wasn't doing the Spirit Squad yet. And I may be wrong. Maybe it was before he was signed. But I thought he was OVW and then was there. But you might be right. It might be before he was signed. I don't know.
And what feedback did you get afterwards? Oh, boy.
There we go. Michael Crockett with a big setup.
I don't know. I don't remember what the feedback was.
I could probably.
You could ascertain.
Yeah, I got to the back, and the first feedback I got wasn't directly, but it was from Handsome, who was hanging out was watching the match with Stevie Richards, and Stevie Richards' feedback was, "Wow, I didn't like that's awesome that Todd was reffing the match. I didn't even notice him." Like, and to me as a ref, I mean that's feedback I want because I'm just part of the background. I'm not the star, so I took that as really good feedback. Then I got pulled aside by John Laurinaitis, and he said you did really well, but you're too fat to work here. That's the quote, and I don't argue with that. Like, I'm not a skinny person. I'll never be a skinny person, and I actually appreciated him being honest in saying that. But those words, "you're too fat to work here," is not something you want to hear as far as that sentence. But I did appreciate the honesty, and he was right. He's definitely right. I needed to get in better shape, and I still do. So.
Well, I didn't mean to bring that up.
Yeah, you ruined the night. That's it. You're getting out of here.
Michael, like I said earlier on Facebook, Michael Crockett, professional a-hole.
Okay, so finally we're going to get to Ring of Honor here. You started going to shows. You just ended up just traveling to shows with John Walters, who was already a part of Ring of Honor, right? That's how you started out.
Yeah, I went to one show in Philly with him just to meet Gabe, and then we went to right around Rochester. I don't know where it was, and he was gonna Gabe had mentioned next time you come, you'll be able to ref a match. So when I got there, I didn't want to just go up to Gabe because I had just met him the show before and say, "Hey, how about that match?" You know what I mean? I didn't want to just bring it up. So I said to John, can you go ask Gabe if I'm going to ref a match tonight? And John wouldn't do it. He was being a prick. So instead of reffing on that show, I was actually, to give me something to do, Bobby Cruz was there doing the Steve Corino intros. I was a young boy for Steve Corino on that Rochester show. So I got to throw streamers into the ring for Corino, clean them up, and then kneel and watch the match from there. But I didn't ref on that show. I refed shortly thereafter. And this is the end of 2003 that I had started going there, and then I started getting dark matches through Ring of Honor.
So, like, people say a lot of times, just keep showing up. Just keep showing up, and eventually something will happen. You advocate this?
To a point. I mean, if you show up 20 times and nothing happens, you might want to rethink how you're doing things.
Right.
But you're not going to get anything unless someone knows you, unless you show your face. You have to be on someone's mind. A perfect example is this past weekend. We were in Buffalo, and one of the wrestlers that was at a previous Ring of Honor camp that we hadn't seen in a long time because he did one camp and then hadn't been at shows, did come and came to help put up the ring and show his face, and we needed an extra person for the dark match. So we mentioned somebody had come to me and said, "Do you have anybody who can be a heel in this dark match?" I said, "Oh yeah, what about this guy? He went to the camp a year ago." "Oh yeah, there he is." Okay, and they pulled him in, and he got to wrestle a dark match. So you got to show your face. You got to be on people's minds. So I advocated for sure. Unless you're losing $5,000 a year traveling all these places and nothing's happening, then you got to rethink things.
Right. So what was your first big match memory in Ring of Honor?
I got to do so. I was doing dark matches, and then on the second anniversary show was the Pure Title tournament, and John Walters was facing Punk in I think it was the first round, and they had
I think it might have been even the opening match.
Might have been.
Yeah.
They had a weird finish as far as like some sort of weird roll up where there would be a couple pins, and then Punk would catch John in a certain 3 count for the 3. And John trusted me, knowing John from starting with training with him and knowing him for the all the time I've been in wrestling. He went to Gabe and Punk and said, "Look, this finish is a little weird, but I know Todd can do it." So that's where I got a shot on the regular show finally to ref. So that was my first big, as far as Ring of Honor reffing, my first big break, if you will.
So he finally did advocate for you after.
Yeah, and that was February, so maybe 4 months later. But he did. He finally went to bat.
He was in a good mood.
Yeah,
it's very nice.
It was very, very helpful.
Now, I'm going to get heat again for this, but the reactions that you get from the crowd personally at Ring of Honor. How do you feel about this?
I don't mind boos. I don't care. That doesn't matter to me. I'm a background player. I'm not the star. I don't want to be the star. That's why I became a ref, because I don't want to be the focus.
I feel the same way.
I'm terrified in front of people. Like, if we were doing this podcast in front of a crowd of 200 people, I wouldn't be able to talk. I'd be Cindy Brady staring at the red light because I get freaked out in front of people.
Or even in front of Mucko. If Mucko was here, you wouldn't know what to do.
Right. I'd be so terrified.
That's because he'd be heckling you the whole time.
Right. But, so I want to be the background. So, I mean, they get on me a little bit, and that's cool. I have no problems with that. The Twinkies chant I hate. Not because you're making fun of me for being a fat person and I like to eat Twinkies, but it just takes away from the match. I mean, these pro wrestlers, they put in everything they have into it. They're putting their lives on the line, and they're doing everything they can physically to entertain you. And you're going to chant Twinkies at the end of every count. I just think that's rotten. I think that's a terrible thing to do to the wrestlers. So I really hate that. But other than that, like, people can boo or cheer or throw eggs at me. Don't throw eggs at me, but what I don't. It doesn't matter to me.
It's gonna be amazing in Lowell when you just get pelted.
Yeah, and it's actually my dad. My dad will be throwing eggs at me.
All right, so we got to bring up Bobby Cruz. Fall River Zone, Bobby
Fall
Cruz.
River Zone, Bobby Cruz.
Fall River Zone.
So he's been your longtime travel partner. What can you say about this fella?
He's a rotten, filthy human being.
And you mean that in the best possible way?
I do. I mean that with love.
Okay.
No, Bobby Cruz, he's very hairy. He has a hairy back. He has a hairy neck.
He loves doing the George Animal Steel impression.
He does the best George Animal Steel impression. If you see him, please ask him to take his shirt off and do it. No, but Bobby Cruz is, like, as far as a person that I've traveled with, but as far as people in the wrestling business, like, you make a lot of friendships, but he's like a brother to me as far as all the time we spent together and the way we can ride each other and annoy each other and the way we talk. He's a really close friend and a good dude. He's selfish sometimes. Like, he always wants to go to Buffalo Wild Wings every time we go on the road.
It's got a great atmosphere.
I can't go to any restaurant I want to go to because he's got to go to Buffalo Wild Wings. But no, he's really is like a brother, and he's a good dude. I just really like to push his buttons and to annoy him.
Over your time in Ring of Honor, you've seen a lot of changes. How did you feel when suddenly Gabe Sapolsky was let go in 2008?
That sucked.
Yeah.
That was a lot of uncertainty because Gabe was the only one who had booked Ring of Honor up until that point. And
right.
Gabe really understood the type of booking that Ring of Honor needed, the type that he focused on was really what fit our company and the wrestlers that we had. So when we got the news, we weren't happy. And a lot of it was just like, what's going to happen next, And Carrie Silkin, if I can just make a side note, he owned Ring of Honor for a long time. He's one of the greatest guys ever in wrestling. And when he made that decision, it was because he felt that was important to the company. And they brought in Adam Pearce, and we were not that we didn't have faith in Pearce, we just didn't know. It was all uncertainty, and it was just nervousness for a little bit until Pearce got his bearings.
And everything was okay with Pearce, right?
Yeah. No, and with Pearce, we went on to HDNet. That's where we started doing the HDNet stuff. So we were finally getting a television product instead of just being a DVD product. With Pearce, we got to be on television. He helped a lot. Whether he was learning on the fly or whether he had the experience, I don't know. But we learned a lot as far as producing wrestling for television. That's something we hadn't done. We had all our shows on DVD, but we didn't focus on this is what we have to do because we're on DVD today. So with having TV under Pearce, he was able to book stuff and then also say, look, we're going to do it this way because this is what we're going to do for television. So that was really good. It took a little bid for him to get his bearings, but it was great.
All right. At some point in the HDNet run, Jim Cornette came into the picture.
Yep.
How'd you feel under Cornette?
Overall, good. I thought, and a lot of people have said this, I thought a lot of his, a few of his ideas were a little old school. I even, in Chaotic, when somebody wanted to do Ether, I fought the hell out of doing Ether on my show when I was booking.
Feeling the effects.
Yeah. So, Cornette brought back Ether in one of the matches, and it was just like, that seems like a little old school. But I didn't have any issues with Jim at all as far as what I did. I really liked working with him. He was passionate, and we all got to see him yell and go crazy here and there, but I didn't have any issues with him.
And he had issues with a lot of the top guys as well. That
Yeah. I mean, it's hard. I think about this sometimes. So we talk about certain things. Like, let's talk about Kevin Steen.
Right.
He and Cornette just didn't see eye to eye a lot, and that's fine. I think that's okay for people to have opinions. They took it way too far as being angry with each other and not totally not agreeing with each other. But you're not going to have the same opinions as everyone. Like, I'm not going to have the same opinion as Crockett or Malonis. I'm going to have what I think is right. But the other thing is, just because one person has an opinion that you're this type of wrestler and you're only going to reach this success doesn't mean that's what everybody else thinks. And Kevin's proved that. Kevin's gone on and now he's the champ in WWF. And that's not to say Cornette was just like, hey, Jim Cornette was wrong. No, that was Cornette's opinion. He didn't see this for Kevin, but Vince McMahon does. And that's opinions. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with having different opinions.
All right, another big tentpole in the history of Ring of Honor that you were there for was the purchase by the Sinclair broadcast group. That was 2011, and I'm sure this is another time that there's a lot of uncertainty, right?
Yeah, we were freaked out more than the Gabe thing because Carrie was the owner for such a long time, and he put so much into Ring of Honor, and the reason why the Ring of Honor is still alive is because Carrie kept it alive for as long as he could. Sinclair coming in and Joe Koff coming in, they've helped it survive from 2011 to this point, and they're a big part of that. But if it wasn't for Carrie, it wouldn't have gotten to then. We would have been closed in 2008, 2009, because it just was losing money for him. So when Sinclair bought it, we were really like, what the hell is going to happen now? The good thing was they kept Cornette on, and they especially kept on Delirious. So they kept a lot of the things that were there for a bit. So that helped the transition. But there was definitely a transition period where they were learning the wrestling business. Joe Koff had history in the wrestling business, but he was getting back into it. So there was definitely some growing pains. But where we're at now, 5 years later, we're doing live pay-per-views. We're doing TV every week. We're in more markets than we were when they bought us, and we're doing international tours. So, it's advancing as places where Carrie couldn't take us because he just didn't have the resources.
Well, Ring of Honor probably now has a legitimate claim as the number 2 wrestling promotion in the United States behind WWE.
Yeah, it's based on people's opinion, but my opinion is that for sure.
Now, what about another big moment was the partnership with New Japan in 2014. Do you think this is kind of reap benefits for Ring of Honor?
Oh, absolutely. Just the quality of wrestlers that they're bringing in is huge. When you have a talent pool that Ring of Honor had, one of the best in the world, and then you add 5 to 10 more of the best wrestlers out there, it can only be great. Going off their name, they're the best, top company in Japan. Going off their name, it can only be good things. The matches, since we've been doing them, we've had Okada come in and Tanahashi and Naito. The matches these guys have had are just off the charts, and I think it's been great for everybody because they use all our guys too. This helps Ring of Honor by our guys going over to Japan to make more money. We can work more often because if we're exclusive to Ring of Honor, we can't do the indies, or some indies anyway, but we can't do most of the indies. So if you're able to take those days off and go over to Japan for a tour for 2 weeks, that just puts more money in people's pockets and more exposure for everyone. It's great.
As we talked about this, a lot of the names in Ring of Honor have gone on to success in WWE. How does that feel to you to see like guys that you were compatriots with, some of you are very friendly with, do big things and win titles, main event WrestleMania? How does that feel for you?
I'm jealous and I hate every one of them.
Of course.
No, it's amazing. It's like where Ring of Honor is in the industry is helping guys become the best in pro wrestling. Whether they stay with Ring of Honor and do it there or they do it somewhere else, it's you get friendships with these people and then they move on and they're able to main event shows like you said, WrestleMania and win world titles in WWF or in Ring of Honor. It's great. I have a lucky spot where I've been in the company for 12 years, and I've seen everybody come through, and I've seen the industry take the Ring of Honor and Japan style and inherit it. Like that's where this cruiserweight stuff, like the style that Ring of Honor has been for the last 14 years, is what the Cruiserweight Classic was. The presentation might be different, but the legacy and the style of wrestling that we've done in Ring of Honor is moving out into the whole world, and the whole world's seeing it. So I'm really proud of it.
So one of the things that I think is one of the greatest travesties in life was the fact that the Win a Date with Todd Sinclair campaign was never completed. I mean, we talked about guys going on to WWE. This is kind of the brainchild of Bryan Danielson, Daniel Bryan. Win a Date with Todd Sinclair. I'm sure you can go and see the videos online.
Please don't.
There's a great video.
Please don't.
I actually saw it today. It's absolutely wonderful.
Can we delete them?
No.
Can we get into other people's accounts and delete these things?
We will put the link on at the WPAN on Twitter. I think that this somehow we have to get this going again.
No.
I don't know how we can. No, you don't.
No. Maybe we can get Bryan Danielson involved.
Well, yeah. The thing was, the reason why I agreed to this whole stupid thing. Now, the beginning of it was we were in New Jersey, and me and Brian had left the building to go get something to eat. So we went to
Buffalo Wild Wings.
No, that's Bobby Cruz's rotten place. We went to Subway, and on the ride, Brian said, "Have you ever seen the movie?" And I don't know if I have the right title, but Win a Date with Tad Hamilton.
I think
something like that. And I said, no, I don't have no idea what you're talking about. He goes, we should have a Win a Date with Todd Sinclair. No, we shouldn't. And from there, it died. The idea was gone. Nobody said anything. And then Brian left Ring of Honor, went to the WWF, and was fired for the NXT angle. Yeah.
The Nexus with the tie. He choked out Justin Roberts, and that wasn't allowed.
So he was let go, and then a few days after he was let go, he messages me on the phone and said, we need to start the Todd Sinclair data thing again.
Yes, we do.
And I said, no, we don't. He said, no, come on, it'll be fun. We'll find a good Asian woman for you. I'm like, as enticing as that was, I thought in my head, I said, look, the guy just lost his job. He was fired from WWF. He's probably down in the dumps.
Oh, you took pity on Bryan Danielson.
I really did.
And allowed this to happen.
I really did. So I messaged back, okay. And that's where it took off. He started doing the stupid videos. They were posting it here and there, and then he got signed again, and it went away. But people were actually emailing him. He had an email address, and people were actually emailing him with suggested people to have dates with, and I actually met a few of them. I didn't go on a date,
really?
But I met a few at like a show. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I would go to the show, and somebody said, "Hey, look, we sent in Rhonda's profile for you to have a date."
Sure, Rhonda's very lovely,
right? And that was fine. Like, it was nice. I whatever. But I hated every bit of it, and I hated those videos more than anything. Pierce loved it too. Pierce was going banana.
Yeah, make sure you Google Win a Date with Todd Sinclair. There's some gems.
Please don't.
And if anyone, I know our demos skew kind of male. But if anyone wants to date Todd Sinclair, you can tweet us at the WPAN. Call the voicemail line 401-584-WPAN. Win a day with Todd Sinclair. Why not? Let's get this thing going again.
All right, I agree.
I don't agree with this. I'm very upset.
All right, before we go, we're going to talk about the pay-per-view. It's live this Friday night in Lowell, Massachusetts at the Lowell Memorial Auditorium. All-Star Extravaganza 8. And it starts at 9 p.m. It's a little later of bell time, at 9 p.m. in Lowell. And there's a TV taping the next day starting at 6 p.m. in the same building, the Lowell Memorial Auditorium. Todd, your thoughts on All-Star Extravaganza 8 coming to Lowell?
I'm excited about it. This will be the first time in a long time we've been in Massachusetts. We've come up to Rhode Island a couple times recently, but I can't remember the last time we've been in Massachusetts. So all the Boston people will get to see this. It is 10 minutes from my house, which is the greatest thing in history. But the matches, we're going to have a three-way ladder war for the World Tag Team Championships. I think it's the first time we're doing a three-way tag one. And we don't do ladder matches in Ring of Honor very often. I want to say this might be the 6th or 5th.
Yes, Ladder War 6.
Yeah, so it's not a common thing. So I think it's the Young Bucks challenging, and the Motor City Machine Guns are also challenging against the Addiction for the world titles, and I'm really looking forward to that. Adam Cole, who's the new world champ, will get to wrestle Michael Elgin, which is a big match because Elgin's the IWGP Intercontinental champ and is former Ring of Honor world champ. So the two of them going at it, I think it's going to be crazy. I think what else is on there? Bobby Fish against Dijak, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
We talked to Dijak a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
I'm
I'm
really
excited.
looking forward to that.
I'm excited for that because Bobby is on a roll. I mean, he beat Shibata. He beat Ishii for the title itself. And then Dijak, who just needs that breakout win. Like, if Dijak can go out there and kill this match, that is going to shoot Dijak. If he wins that world television title, he's going to shoot Dijak to the moon. So I'm excited about those title matches.
And they're starting the 6-man Tag Team Championship tournament that night.
Yep.
Also, CMLL's Dragon Lee will make his debut against Kamatachi. What do you think about this new alliance with CMLL?
I think it's just as the New Japan is. I think it's great for everybody because we can send guys down there. I know Matt Taven just made his return to wrestling after being out for like 9 months with an injury in CMLL, and now they're bringing guys in with us. I don't know much about the wrestlers there, so I'm actually excited to see Dragon Lee and more of those guys come in because I think there's a CMLL 6-man tag team that's coming in for that tournament. I don't know when, what shows, but it's good we can bring in a team from CMLL to compete right for the 6-man titles.
Yes, if not on the pay-per-view, I'm sure maybe the next day, October 1st, for the TV taping at the Lowell Memorial Auditorium.
And it's actually one thing I kind of want to touch on here because we had Warbeard Hansen on.
Yes.
Our good friend Todd. And you're pretty instrumental in Todd kind of getting his first break on the indies. You're both coming back to Lowell, which for both of you, from being Chaotic Wrestling, that was the home base of your home promotions.
Yep.
Just kind of give a thought of, like, what is it like now to see Todd there? And obviously, I'm sure you spend a lot of time together and whatnot. And again, being so instrumental in Todd's career, what's that kind of like now being there with him?
It's huge because here's a kid who, and he talked about it when he was on your podcast, where me and Mucko went to a show. We were booking Chaotic at the time. We saw his first match ever, I think, and we said, hey, that's not that bad.
Yes.
And we pulled him aside and said, do you want to come up to the Chaotic school and we can do something and work from there? So helping him out early in his career was a big deal. And then we've just, from the beginning of him coming up with us, just been through all kinds of stuff as far as the school and through Chaotic. And then he had his injuries, so he was out with his back injury, and then I think he said his shoulder, right? Mm-hmm. For him to make a comeback like that, and he's turned his look and his wrestling and his physique into a world-class performer. He is world class. He went over to Noah sometime this year over with War Machine with Ray Rowe, and he's over in Germany here and there, and he's wrestling in England, and he wrestles in Scotland and in Ireland. He's really making a splash later than he should have because he should have been a bigger deal much earlier than this. I remember bringing him to Gabe when he was Handsome Johnny, and he did a few dark matches, and nothing stuck. But he just needed that change, I think, after he was injured, that change in attitude and look and style that is, I'm proud of him. I'm really proud of him.
It's kind of weird that, you knew from match one.
I'm the smartest person in history. I'm a genius.
But now, from the humble beginnings of the Lowell PAV and then whatever the hell the other building was in Lowell.
Lowell Elks. Yeah, Lowell Elks.
Now, Friday night, you guys are going to be both live on pay-per-view from the same city right down the road. So, kind of cool, full circle sort of thing.
It's a big deal. Like, I grew up in the next town. I grew up in Billerica. So, I mean, this is my dad, who I think has seen me ref live twice in his life. So I can actually bring my dad to the next town, and he gets to see me perform on such a level that Ring of Honor provides me. I'm psyched. I can't wait.
So we're going to be there as well, I think. Right, Brian?
We will be.
And that is in Lowell at the Lowell Memorial Auditorium this Friday. And if you can't make it, make sure you watch live on traditional pay-per-view. All right, Todd. Thank you so much for doing this, coming on the Wrestling Podcast About Nothing. I know you're a big fan. You listen to all the episodes.
I've heard every single one.
We appreciate it very much. And maybe we'll do this again sometime.
Yeah, and keep listening for jokes that are just for you.
Yes, I love those, and I hate your Dirt Sheet Shuffle song.
How dare you?
It's one for the Kingpin.
It's atrocious.
How dare you?
It's atrocious.
Oh, my goodness.
And I sit and wonder what you're going to come up with BDA every week. What could he possibly say is BDA?
Well, you just missed it. Maybe you'll hear it on the show. You'll hear it on the show.
Thank goodness.
All right. Thanks very much, Todd, for being here.
Thank you, Mrs. Roselli.
For more on the Wrestling Podcast About Nothing, subscribe to us wherever you get your favorite podcasts, or find us on our website, thewpan.com. That is thewpan.com.